we can sit next to each other, write some code, and point at each other's screens, and then hit compile and load the hologram that we're working on together next to each other. And that hologram we call meta. So how does it work? What is meta? Well, RGB feedback for you guys. So meta is a pair of glasses that's a dev kit called the Meta 1, and a line of future glasses that are coming out later this year. And these glasses allow you to experience holographic reality as a developer right now, instead of having to wait for it for quite some time. And as a SDK developer, it means that you have touchable widgets. So if you've been waiting for the Unity 4.6 SDK and getting excited about Unity's GUI system, now all that GUI stuff works in a sort of Iron Man kind of way. So when you install it, you get this ability to just grab things. So in this case, I'm grabbing the help panel. So if I install the Meta SDK, and I go up to the Meta menu, you get this nice little window. And here's the little thing I just showed you. So this is going to take you through our documentation and show you how to use it. Once you start using it, you're going to discover that main camera is gone. And like all augmented reality or VR type systems, there's a new fancier camera that replaces it. How does that work? Well, today you guys might be learning about how first-person shooters work with Unity and Unity 5 in particular. This is like first-person shooting, except the level is gone, and you're the level. This is real life. So what you have instead is two eyeballs. This is like a gizmo that appears in the Unity scene. One of them for left, one of them for right. Each one is actually several layers. So there's a background layer, a HUD layer to keep things in front of things, and a normal layer for all the holograms that you want in the middle. And that thing actually moves around in a world that when you're just standing in one spot and you're not tracking anything particular, you're 0, 0, 0. So I am the center of this game world. But when you use our tracking technologies, you can actually step out of 0, 0, 0 and move through the world. So I mentioned before that there's different layers. So with this, you see there's a background layer, there's a default layer, and there's a HUD layer for things like clocks or dialog boxes that you want to block stuff with. And what this all lets you do, once you replace the main camera, is start to build apps like Legos. So what are these Lego pieces that you're going to build out of? Well, if you're used to building games, you're used to following all kinds of design patterns that are sort of, the way to make a particular genre of a game and everything. And when you start to contemplate making augmented reality experiences, the word game doesn't quite cover it, even if you're making it, because what you're doing is like something out of a movie. So how do you start? The first thing that you're going to discover is that you're no longer just making a game that's going to run solo. So remember the original Macintosh had one app at a time, and then they came out with Multifinder. And the initial concept of what augmented reality apps were is that you bought them on the App Store and you installed them one at a time, and they were all separate. But just to demonstrate this concept, there's another app running in this scene that pops up when I do something like touch a keyboard element. So when I touch this text box, it just loaded a keyboard. And this keyboard, it wasn't loaded before, and now I'm typing. And so when you're building an app in Meta, you're not just building one single executable that loads up and you're in that app. You're building things and stuff. The word app doesn't quite cover it. So your thing and someone else's thing might coexist in the same world, and people might literally drag and drop things into one another, or your thing might collide with somebody else's stuff. So you're building stuff, not just apps. Now, what are your apps made out of? Well, there's chiefly two kinds of ingredients involved. There's panels, like this sort of thing, which you're pretty familiar with this. It's just in space. And because of 3D depth perception, I can actually home in on where these objects are. And buttons and widgets. And everything you know about Unity 4.6 GUI applies, except that now you can touch it. So we just extended it gracefully so all this stuff still works. You have all the things you'd expect to be able to do. So you have like inertial scrolling. So you can do big data-driven applications with great layouts and stuff. And it's very easy to drive behavior from buttons. But you also have these new things, which are holograms. So these kinds of objects, we have a thing called a metabody. And just to show you how simple this is, how many people here have played with rigid body physics in Unity before? Okay, so rigid bodies, like in every game engine, you're going to have rigid bodies, and you're going to be able to very easily just check box to enable things like gravity, and take for granted that all sorts of stuff can happen. So if I go to the scene view, there's me. I'm eyeballs in the middle. You can actually zoom in on me. See my eyeballs. Okay. And that's actually the camera. That's the depth sensor and the glasses. You can see a little model of it. So if you need to do geometry or raycasting, you have a precise model. And here's the cool Iron Man things. We got so tired of freeze framing and slow motioning the Iron Man movies that we hired Chase Hansen, the director of graphics from the Iron Man films, to be our director of graphics from graphics. And we actually have a checkbox right here called JSify. And if you check the JSify box, it makes things look like holograms, like literally. So, and it does animations and cool stuff. So, but what about the more serious aspects of this feature set? So this metabody, unlike a rigid body, is not designed to do Newtonian things that users don't expect to sort of be delightfully, fun and exciting. Iron Man doesn't want his workshop to be exciting. He wants it to just redesign, and he wants it to do what he intends. So it's an intentional kind of physics, not a Newtonian kind of physics. So the physics I want to be able to define is this object should be pinchable, and I want to move it, or scale it when I pinch it. Now, if I reach out to the graphics object that I defined as being pinchable, that's what it will do. So the pinchable one, this one is rotatable. So see, each of these different checkboxes enables all these interactions without you having to write any code. So this one is grabbable, movable. This one is grabbable, rotatable. This one is pinchable, scalable. So you don't have to write any code. It's just like turning on gravity. And this one is vision-based. So if I look at this object, it glows. That lets you have like rollovers without any effort. The user can just learn about the environment, and you can tell them like graph without them having to guess what they're supposed to do. You can just put the message about numbers. When they look at it, they'll tell them. But if I wanted to change the rotatable object there, do something different, all I have to do is change these checkboxes. So if I change this from pinchable to graphable, rotatable, it will now do something like that. So as a programmer, what you have to do to implement all of these kinds of interactions, so see that used to be the pinchable object, not the rotatable object. What you have to do to build interactions of your own is write code, right? So we wrote a thing called meta behavior. And meta behavior just starts with mono behavior and extends it. So if we go to the gazeable object, the one you saw changing color, we can show you what code looks like in it. So we try to be as Unity-like as possible, although one of the things that we did, they started taking out of Unity 5, which was these really nice shortcut variables. So you don't have to write a get component for every single call to metabody. If you have a meta behavior script, it assumes that it's on a metabody, and you can just write one line of code, like metabody.grabbable equals true, or if metabody.grabbable. And these are, it says Microsoft is a threat. Okay, so this is some very simple code. It looks exactly like on Mouse Center. So all the same kinds of handlers that you're used to are there. And they're all implemented using the same kind of reflection-based magic, so they don't have to be public. And that's the whole program. It changes it when I look at it in different colors. So in addition to this very simple trigger-based type events, you have access to the hand data. You can get, at any given time, you have the state of the fingers. You have access to camera data. So we've got a C++ access that we're putting out so people can get their own vision modules, like OpenCV type stuff. And you'd be able to plug that in and be able to combine and mix and match different types of vision instead of being locked into a single vendor of vision technology. is kind of a big deal if you've ever tried to mix two different vision libraries on the same camera. It doesn't usually work. And just to illustrate what you can actually make with this, I just showed you building blocks and Legos. I want to show you some applications. So I've got two applications that are symbolic of the two kinds of things I mentioned before. There's like stuff, the holograms, and then there's panels, which are basically what we're used to, but floating in space. So let's start with the stuff we're used to.